Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. So, to recollect what we did last time, so verse 68 was Sad Brahma Karyam Sakalam Sadeva Sanmatrametat Na Tato Anyadasti. So, everything that is made of Sat will be Sat alone. It cannot be anything different from Sat. So, that is what was mentioned. And it was also mentioned that if someone says that no, other things have their own reality, it will be like the blabbering of a person who gives reality to dream objects. So that is how it was equated. And then we saw Brahmaiva idam, everything is a Brahma only, Vishwamityeva Vani. So it was saying that in Atharva Veda, it is very clearly said that everything else here is Brahman only, and that should be considered, and we cannot ignore that Veda Vakya, because Veda Vakya is always Satya. And also it was mentioned that na adhishtanat abhinnata aropitasya, the one which is the base of everything, the substratum of everything, on that one should not superimpose duality. So that is what was mentioned. So basically, what we are seeing here is a set of statements for Aikya. Hari Om Minil.
Hari Om, sorry, couldn't join early.
No, it's okay. I think many probably are not here because of Janmashtami. At least in Gujarat, I think until 1:30 they have celebrations going on. I was just summarizing, what we saw last time. I meant to put those sessions actually on YouTube. I'll just repeat because last time you were not there. So verse 68, in summary, mentioned that everything that is made of Sat Brahma Karyam, Sakalam Sateva, everything that is made of Sat will remain Sat alone. That cannot become Asat. So everything what you see here is Sat only. Was a statement mentioned there, and it was also mentioned that a person who says that no, other things have their own reality, the way we see they have reality, is equated to a person. If a person says that, he is equated to a person who gives reality to dream objects. So it is like saying a person in dream, obviously he can say that the dream objects are real, but once one wakes up, obviously the dream objects, the reality of it is dropped directly. It is not even debated actually, it is just dropped. So that was equated actually here to objects born out of Satya being Sat alone. They cannot have an independent existence. So that is what was mentioned. And verse 69 was saying that even it was talking about the validity of Pramana. Pramana is, Veda is a Pramana. Pramana is that which is like an authority which reveals the Vastu. That is Pramana. So a quote from Vedas was mentioned that Brahma eva idam, Brahmai vedam. So everything here is Brahman alone. So it's a statement made in Vedas. So that statement is brought out in this context to uh, reiterate Aikya and Abhinnata. So it's used in that sense, and the basis of making a statement and referring to Vedic statement is connected to our Shraddha. Only because of our Shraddha, which is Guru Vedanta Vakyadishu Vishwasaha Shraddha. So a person who has relative acceptance and trust in the words of Vedas, and the person who is teaching Vedas, only those they come to this pursuit. So to them, one of the statement that is used is that this is mentioned in Vedas, that straight away Brahmaiva idam. So this is applicable to those people who have Shraddha in the Shastra. Otherwise, to others, if you go and say, it is said in Vedas, this is what it is. If, for example, if someone is given to another religion, or if someone is an agnostic, if we make the statement to that person, he is going to be totally agnostic to the statement also. Because he is going to say, in any case, I don't believe in these things. I do not accept this as a pramana. So then even if you make a reference to one of the verses out of million verses, it's not going to make any difference to me. That is what that person is going to say. So to others, it does not make sense ideally. To those who have Shraddha and who are using Vedanta for self-knowledge, to them alone this statement makes sense. There are some further statements also which are more Veda Pramana. But then what is the use of this statement? Amongst those who have Shraddha, they also, when they inquire, there are many statements made in Upanishads, and each Upanishad has its own set of presentation. So, within one Upanishad also, one may find that, okay, line 1 was saying this, line 5 is saying this, which one is correct? So, this doubt, these doubts, they keep arising. So, from that sense, someone may ask, oh, is oneness mentioned in Vedanta? Is oneness stressed in Upanishads? Where is it? So this will be one of the inquisitiveness of the seeker. So for that, Shankaracharya has to refer to those statements which mention that there is only one thing, Satya is only one. Apart from that, everything else is Mithya. Another word has to be used. Instead of saying Asatya, Mithya is the word that is used. So, even amongst these verses which are in Upanishads, so Vedanta itself is that which is the essence of the pursuit of the entire Veda as a body of knowledge. Because those who are pursuing this, they are very clear in terms of Purushartha that amongst the Purushartha, Moksha is the supreme, is very clearly identified by the group of people who are pursuing this knowledge. So the other three are Dharma, Artha, Kama. So these three being there, Moksha is the real pursuit, that's the deal. So this is very clearly ascertained by those who have come into the abode of Vedanta, right? That being the case, definitely they have Shraddha. But even if one has Shraddha, Shankaracharya himself says, Vastu Siddhihi Vicharena. So Vastu Siddhi happens in terms of clarity. One gets clarity about the truth, about oneself, only through proper inquiry. So there is a task. It is not like a pill, you take a pill and then the job is done. No. Yes, we get into Vedanta. There we have to allow our mind to dwell on those statements and get the contradictions removed, and that's a process. So if this is the process, obviously when the person enters into Vedanta, he finds that there are so many books, so many Upanishads, and within Upanishad, some of them are quite crisp to an extent that one statement needs maybe 100 class to really explain one statement. So this can happen in Brahma Sutra because they are in real sutra format where many things are packaged into maybe few words, 4-5 words. So to give one example, the first line of Brahma Sutra is Athato Brahma Jigyasa. So only 4 words. To explain these 4 words, one may need 10 to 15 classes. So it's so potent in terms of the content within it. So that's like a nuclear power, no? To that extent, things are embedded into that. So a person, when he gets into Vedanta, he finds that yes, even if, for example, if you take the entire body of knowledge of Vedas, Vedanta in terms of volume, number of verses, if I guess, reasonably, it should be probably 20% or 15%, you can say, because the Veda Purva is much more elaborate, because it is also meant for action. So obviously something meant for action has to be a little more elaborate, because it will have the steps also, in terms of what steps one has to follow while chanting those mantras. So those things also would be coming there actually. One example I can give, whenever we perform any ritual, there are mantras which are meant as an offering to Lord, or it also have its own frequency. There's a certain like Gayatri mantra, and whenever you do some oblation, you will have a swaha after everything. So you offer to Soma, you offer to Agni, you have to offer to Indra. So all these Devi Devatas, and we also offer to Pitrus. So whenever we do that and we say Swaha. So there are many mantras. So in Karma Khanda, it has got its own way of performing things. Okay, there are 2 things. One is the real mantra which is meant for that particular action. The second one is embedded in terms of giving the instructions to the karta, do this, do that. So one example is, before we start any ritual, we are supposed to purify our heart by doing this Achyutaya Namaha Anantaya Namaha, taking 3 sips of water with the Lord's name, and then we are supposed to wear that pavitra, dharba we call it. So the dharba can be made into 3 forms. Some of you may not know this, that's the reason I thought I'll just give a brief orientation about this. Dharba, if you see, can be made of 3 forms. One is the straight stick alone actually. These are just parallel sticks. This maybe, what you can call it, 10 inches or so of that length. They just cut. And the front side of it, which has the flexible side, that is used for 2 other reasons. One is to make a pavitra. So pavitra is something which one has to wear. There is a method. If you Google, you will come to know how the pavitra looks. So we are supposed to wear it in the pavitra finger. This is called pavitra finger actually in Sanskrit. This one is pavitra finger. So we are supposed to wear. That's the reason ring is mostly worn in this particular finger, ring finger. So pavitram we wear, and it comes here actually, and we are supposed to do the rituals only after wearing pavitra. And after wearing pavitra, we take 2 blade of the those grasses, that straight one what I said, 2 of them, and we put it as asana. So what we do is we always purify our asana before starting any ritual. So we do that. So the system has to say that take this and put it down. So create asana for you by using this darbha. The system also has to say that's only an action. That's not an action of that real puja, but you are preparing yourselves, like put on your cloth and then sit down for puja, something like that, So darbeshvasinaha. So it says darbeshvasinaha. We say that and we put it actually. It's also part of those verses, but that indicates what one has to do actually. And then we also take 2 such darbha and wear it along with pavitra. We just put it and then we are supposed to put it here actually. So that is called, like you have to word darbeshvasinaha, then darban dharayamanaha. So put those darbha also here. That's what it means actually. Then we got Shuklam Bharadhanam Vishtam Chachavaram Chaturpujam. So we start that later actually. So Karma Khanda has those rituals which are offered as those lines which are offered as prayer, and also those lines which are like an instruction to the karta, that do this, do that. So that is much more voluminous than Upanishads. Vedanta, Upanishads, they are synonymous. So out of this, roughly 15% in my opinion, whatever is the volume of Upanishads, one sees that at least there are 10 Upanishads which are still alive. And they are alive because Shankaracharya has written Bhashyam for all these. So he had created this Bhashyam explanation for these. So obviously during his time he had also disciples, and his disciples have continued that work, so it is available in written form till today. So 10 Upanishads have been salvaged and they are available intact. I'm sure there are some more as well, but then 10 straight away one guru has written, and he has reproduced and given explanation as well to them. That's the reason we have these 10 intact till today. Kena, Katha, Mundaka, Mandukya, Brihadaranyaka, Chandogya, and so Ishavasya, Shvetashvatara Upanishad, and 2 more, Taittiriya and 1 more. So these are all those 10 Upanishads. Amongst these Upanishads also, 2 of them are quite big. For example, Chandogya Upanishad has probably about 700 verses. And Brihadaranyaka probably has about 585 or 600 verses. So for the voluminous one, these are the examples. And for the crisp one, Mandukya Upanishad has only 16 verses. The entire Brahma Vidya taken into 16 verses. If a person's Chitta Shuddhi is at that level, for that person, even Mandukya Upanishad of 16 verses will work. When revealed properly in the right language, the person can understand. That is enough. If not, obviously there would be elaboration that is required. So, depending on the student's Chitta Shuddhi, which includes, Mumukshutvam, all the sadhana chatushtaya, sadhana, the result of sadhana, depending on the preparedness, adhikaratva of that person, this can work wonders. If it is even one statement, it can work wonder. And there is nothing wrong, no need to have any complex in terms of this actually. The variety is provided only to address this variety of adhikaris, that's all. There is nothing wrong. If it is crisp and one needs elaboration, that is available. Acharyas have given this kind of Bhashyam, and I think Shankara Bhashyam, if I say 16 verses versus Bhashyam, I am sure Bhashyam itself will have probably 100 or 200 verses to explain this 16. So there are three prakaranams, they have created for Mandukya Upanishad. Amazing they are actually. So when one gets time, one should go to the right person who can explain all that very nicely. Some of these acharyas, they can explain very well. So they should pursue this. So the limited point is, when it is small, then it has to be elaborated. And yes, those which are already elaborate, someone can resort to those as well for understanding. So in this case also, Shankaracharya has written Vivekachudhamani in a similar format as Upanishad. And there are 585 or 586 verses in the original text. Swami Dayananda Saraswati, what he has done is, the author of this book, he has asked one another Swamiji, like whom he had initiated into sannyasa, he had asked him to select 108 verses by removing the thematic repetition. So sometimes this 108 looks a little bit more easier and a holy number kind of, and easy to pursue. So it is just that, for those who feel that, this 108, this size book is a little easy to follow, then definitely they will be the ones, who will pick up this. And nothing is missed out in terms of context. So in terms of context, everything is embedded. Obviously, Swami Paramarthananda ji is, qualified enough to select those 108, which would not take away the essence of Vedanta. So that is how this book has come about. So these are selections from Vivekachudhamani. So Shankaracharya, when he is writing, he is quoting from Vedas in the context of talking about Advaita, in terms of bringing one to the Aikya Bhava. Aikya of what? Aikya of the individual I, basically that Atma, what was mentioned, with Ishvara as the creator. So with Brahman, basically. So Jiva and Ishvara, or Ishvara in this sense is basically Jagat Karanam Brahma is Ishvara. So Jiva Ishvara Aikya is what is being discussed in these verses now. And this Aikya, understanding this Aikya, becoming one, dropping individuality, understanding totality, and understanding totality to be oneself. That's the real Aikya. Understanding totality not to be different from us. Understanding totality to be oneself is what is Aikya. This is what Jiva Ishvara Aikya is all about. That is what is being discussed now. Individually, Jagat was explained, Atma was explained, and in any case, Nitya Vastu Vekam Brahma Tad Vyatiriktam Sarvam Anityam was also mentioned as a part of Sadhana Chatushtaya. Now we are trying to understand if Atma is everything, if Atma is beyond this Panchakosha, beyond Shariratraya, beyond all these things what we see, beyond this Jagat, then what it is? It was mentioned, it is of the nature of Satchitananda Swarupa. If it is of Satchitananda Swarupa, it lasts ever, it is always existing. Ananda is its Swarupa. If that is the case, if I am that Atma, then the next question comes, where is the creator? If this Atma is all pervasive, if this Atma is everything, then where is that thing which I thought to be the creator? This level we have come in Vivekachudhamani. That is when these statements are making sense, that Sadbrahmakaryam Sakalam Sadeva. That which is made of Sat is Sat alone. So, even if we have to say, okay, this body is here, where does it come from? Sat. I am here, where do I come from? Sat. Okay. Then it is also explained that I am of the nature Atma, of basically Atma, away from all these bodies which can change and which I myself objectify. One does not accept something to be changing only because it is said by someone else. As I said, inquiry is very important. Any statement, even if it is from Vedas, revealed by a guru, has to be assimilated by us. It has to become assimilated in our sense first. Right? That may have a validity, but we have to still assimilate it. For example, music is there. It has its own melody, it has its own validity. Everything is fine. Benefit, everything is fine. Yes, that is there. But I have to assimilate in me. I have to learn it to be able to reproduce it. Similarly, knowledge is there. Shraddha is there and knowledge is also there. We have to assimilate it and get rid of this ignorance. And getting rid of ignorance is useful only when I get rid of the gap between myself and the creator. And this is being stressed and pointed out by Vedanta time and again. That's why Shankaracharya has to dwell a little bit more on the topic of this Aikya Bhava. Even if you see the proportion of lines, verses which have been taken in terms of stressing this Aikya part, you will find that probably the Aikya part has much more in numbers than any other thing that is there. If you see the original work of Vivekachudhamani, it will be 4 times these verses, because the original verses, you have 586 verses. Those reduced to 108, no? About 1/4, you can say what we have, or 1/5 what we have. So, you can say that in the original verse, this Aikya Bhava if there are 10 verses of Aikya Bhava here out of the 100 verses, you can imagine 5 times more it will be there actually. So this is how Aikya is so important actually, because that is where the knowledge culminates. So the knowledge culminates in Aikya, in our understanding that this individual Jiva is not separate from the Lord. The entire essence of Vedanta is to erase this gap, this difference between oneself and the Creator. Basically, this is the real pursuit of Vedanta. To understand what is the substratum of what is appearing here, what is my relationship between that substratum, these are the main points which basically are dealt with in Vedanta, and that is where the person also starts. The only thing is the person does not know this particular crisp idea when the person starts the pursuit. This idea itself is refined as a part of the pursuit, and finally it precipitates at this point where one understands, yes, Jagat is something which is changing, Atma is that which is witnessing all this change, so this is changeless. That kind of a thing is understood. How? In Sushupti, even though mind is resolved, there is a witness to objectify this mind. So there is a presence of another thing that is able to witness a mind which is resolved. So I think earlier it was mentioned, no? Buddhi, tadvritti, sadbhavam, abhavam, ahamityayam. So in one of those lines it was mentioned, the one which witnesses buddhi, tadvritti, mind and buddhi, its modifications, its working, and also its resolved status. So this Atma is able to witness a mind that is active and also a mind that is resolved. The mind that is resolved is kind of linked to and related to after one wakes up. It is not a conscious, dealing, conscious, thing which is happening, because most of us, whenever we talk about objectifying, we talk about objectifying through mind only. Anything that comes through our mind and intelligence, that's what we see as objectification. The moment mind has to be seen by something else, there will be little, become shaky. So we have to now understand then what is objectification. So mind's active status and inactive status is objectified by us, the real us, that is Atma. And that again need not be a product of thought. So this is what is very important. Normally, anything that we perceive, this is all perception. Even if we have to infer, this is also an activity of mind alone, mind and intellect. Okay, so this is how we normally perceive and infer. Perception and inference, they are basically the property of mind. Now, if one has to go to the next tattva, which Vedanta and Veda Shastra is pointing out, saying, oh, you are that which is beyond this mind. Mind is like a toy available to you. If that is what is said, then one has to understand, then how do I perceive? So it is like, you have one microscope, and to see that, enlarged, do you find another microscope? It's what is the case actually. Both these are Karana. So what one has to understand is, every scope actually has no scope to reveal that Atma. Every scope, telescope, microscope, every scope is only a scope to reveal Anitya. None of these scope can be actually turned to the other side to show Satya, because it is impossible. Satya is that in which every possibility happens. So a product of this Satya can never objectify Satya. So we cannot use a telescope, We cannot use a microscope to see Atma. No way. Because it is a product. The product cannot show the producer. Simple. The created cannot reveal the creator. Now the question is, okay, is Shastra having a particular status where it can reveal the Vastu? It is also a kind of, telescope or whatever you can call it. Suppose you see that is an instrument. Yes, it has. And if someone asks, okay, then Shastra is also something like, telescope, microscope or something like this, then how is that able to reveal the totality? Because Shastra is also part, if you ask. Good question, if that is asked. Yes, all that what Shastra does is, Shastra does not give, this Atma or this sense of totality as a piece of cake, cutting it, take now this piece. It doesn't give like that actually. Shastra does only a simple trick. All that it does is, it pokes a hole on ignorance. That's all. Ignorance is the basis of our problem. That is what has to be killed. It just pokes a hole there. And Shastra need not fetch you Brahman as one, doll and keep it in your hand. No, not at all. It need not do that. All that Shastra has to do is just poke a hole on what you take yourself to be as such. So it has to just say that now you see this, is this right? Then you will say no, it is wrong. That way it leads you towards yourself, which is the truth. Otherwise, Shastra is a subset of totality in any case. So, when Shastra is also addressing us, Shastra is a part of world only. As much everything else has come from Brahman only, Shastra is also coming from the totality only. Simple as this. So, when ignorance comes about, the antidote to ignorance also comes at the same time. For example, one example I can give is, take water, which has probably this pH of 7, I think. Now, when this pH reduces, it becomes acidic. And when pH increases, it becomes basic. Okay, the neutral one is water. I think 7 is water. pH 7 is water. So, moment it reduces from 7, it becomes acidic. And moment it goes towards 8 and 9, it becomes basic. Now, this acidic and basic, they can neutralize each other. They can neutralize each other and come back to the neutrality. So basically, when ignorance comes about in this world, the antidote to ignorance also comes in automatically. If you have the same source of water, if that becomes acidic, automatically there is another side which will be basic. When this acid and base, they come together, they would definitely get neutralized. This is how jnana is also available this way only. When ignorance is a possibility, when that Purusha, which is everything, can be kind of subject to this is the way it's called mithya, a nice word actually, can be subject to this kind of possibility where the person becomes ignorant of his own powers and gets deluded in this kind of body and takes world to be real and keep transacting in them. If that possibility is available, by corollary, by nature, the second part is automatically available. When you cut a cake, when you get one part, other part is already available. Because totality works that way. If totality can be subject to ignorance, totality will automatically have the solution, the antidote to ignorance. That is what is Shastra. And this is not sorry, the power went off here. I just realized that when I opened my eyes. Okay, can someone tell me where, until when you heard me?
Water pH 7, Bhaskar.
Thanks. Okay, so if from that alone, when from totality, when part has to come, when one part comes, automatically there is another part that need not be created at all. So when we say Shastra is not created by anyone, this is what it means. It's as simple as that. From totality, if a part has to emerge, another part is already given. So if I take the example of water, which I think the pH is 7, from that, if acidity has to be created and acid has to be taken out of it, even if there is a process to do that, automatically a base will also be created, because when you decrease here, automatically in the other place there will be an increment. So as acid gets created, base will be available naturally. As simple as that. This is how this Shastra, which is an antidote to ignorance. When ignorance happens, automatically you have the antidote to ignorance available. In this sense only, it is mentioned, this knowledge is not created knowledge. It is available. How? When you have a cake, you cut one piece, you just look at the other piece, you know, oh, this came from this only. So from the very shape of that cake, you can understand that, okay, fine, you can see one missing piece there, and ideally one can go, oh, this was a part of the whole only. It's very clearly understood actually. The only problem is, what we face here is that the cake is being cut into different shapes and they've been juxtaposed everywhere to an extent you can't even get a clue that, okay, there is a possibility to, actually link to the original piece which is available. So when we are in such situation in life today, where we do not have any clue to put the piece together. But when ignorance comes about, antidote to ignorance is automatically available, as much as water with pH 7, when it becomes acid, automatically you have base as well along with it. It's just natural. So when people talk about Swayambhu, people may get confused. When we say that, no, this Veda Shastra is not created by human mind, because it is beyond that. It is not created by human mind at all. The human mind is quite small in terms of totality. So then how it comes? The word said is, no, it is just available as a Swayambhu. It is a Bhu means availability, existence. Swayambhu, it comes on its own. How? So people may get confused. There is nothing to get confused. When you have a piece of cake, you cut one half, you see the other half, they are already together. So when you cut something, the other half is given. This is how it is Swayambhu. So from totality, which is Brahman, which is oneself, if Jiva has to come about, and if that is due to ignorance, automatically the antidote to ignorance will be available as the second piece of cake. As simple as that. And when that Pramana, which is Shastra, operates on this ignorance, which definitely it does, it neutralizes ignorance. Only ignorance has to go, and knowledge, knowledge in terms of this Veda Shastra, which is also Anitya, because it is the second piece, you can say, that neutralizes this. The totality, which is the Sarvatra knowledge actually, that alone obtains. So this is how Shastra comes about, only like this second piece of cake, that's all. As simple as that. So many people, they may get confused. Swayambhu कैसे हो सकता है? अपने आप कैसे हो सकता है? अपने आप ऐसे ही होता है. If it is totality, when you take one part, the other part is given. And imagine, is there a distance between this part and that part? Not at all. If you cut, ideally there are some pieces which have come in that knife as well. Actually, that's the reason you see a gap. And since we have appetite, we want to eat quickly, you pull out the cake as well, so you create more distance. That's the reason there is a distance. Otherwise, there is no distance. Absolutely, there is no distance. Where ignorance is, knowledge is also there only. And in totality, there is nothing great to discuss. We can't even have these Vedanta classes. So there is no great joy, whatever, to some extent, from a mind perspective. To that extent, it's a blessing that, oh, what a nice thing to get confused and then, to get clarity again. So nice it is. What a pursuit, so nice to, go through this human birth and study from standard 1 to 12. Keep, feeling as though you are choosing the, graduation or whatever it is. Have a sense of doing many things. Though most of the time things have just happened actually. Many times you don't know why we got 100 marks. We don't know. Many times we don't know. We did everything but we got 35 marks. We really don't know. So we have been kicked by the karma throughout actually enjoying this. And this is how we see it. So fine, there's a lot of pleasure, once you have pain and then you overcome that, there's a lot of pleasure as well. But Brahman is that which is beyond all this, which is quite neutral. So to that extent, yes, Maya world is so nice actually. You have problems, you have resolved them, and you are very happy. So this is what is happening actually, if you see. So in terms of Shastra is already available as ignorance happens. As ignorance happens, you have antidote to ignorance just available. How Swayambhu? Obviously the other half is that. Obviously the other half is that. Take one piece out, everything else is Shastra. That's all. This is how it is working actually. And this is what is being said everywhere. And in the case of Shankaracharya, when he has written this Vivekachudhamani, it follows just a similar pattern as Upanishads. And he is making this statement here. So, this is why Shastra has its relevance, because the other part is Shastra. The Shraddha one has to get is only from simple thing. Out of pH 7, I'm using a technical word here actually, out of this water which is kind of neutral in terms of the hydrogen ion concentration, if acid has to come about, automatically you should also have base. It is just the other side of the coin. If ignorance is one side of the coin, the other side of the coin is Shastra. Is Shastra. This is how it is said. Whenever you hear somewhere Shastra is Swayambhu, it is not a created knowledge. It can only be revealed. The person who has assimilated reveals it. The person who knows, oh, this is the other side of the cake, can say, boss, this is what it is. That's all. That's all. Nothing great. If Krishna could reveal it, what is it a great thing? No, not at all. It just happened that he had the role to reveal it. When you have Aikya Bhava, everyone is the same Krishna. Everyone is the same Krishna. So one has to really understand how this Shastra Pramana is so valid. I was touching this topic because when someone has to give a justification as to why Aikya is valid, why Brahman is not two, is only one. Satya is only one, it can never be a second thing. If this has to be said, we take asylum, as of now we are taking asylum in the words of Shastra. So, Shankaracharya ji is quoting that in Atharva Veda. It is mentioned here, Brahmaiva idam Sakalam Jagatcha. It is also, it comes, Sakalam Jagatcha, Vishwamityeva, Brahmaiva idam. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahmasi is a statement. All that is here is Brahman alone, is a statement. So he is quoting that statement here. And that Shraddha, one has to really understand how we have kept Shraddha in this. When one inquires, these are all the things we can see. So this is how I would like to explain that. If ignorance can happen, the antidote to ignorance automatically is available, like the piece of that cake only. You have a nice rectangular 1 square foot cake, take out half a square foot, another half square foot is just available there. It need not be created by anyone. It's just available there. So this is how, when from a neutral thing, something like if from neutral pH, which is water, if acid has to happen, automatically base is given. It is given. This is what is Swayambhu. So many people will get confused. Swayambhu, is this mentioned only because you don't have any more explanation to give? This can happen. Many times you say, acha, ye to Swayambhu mila tha. Okay, so we don't need to get confused. No, in material things, no, material things are still material things. Whatever happens, when you can see Lord in everything, you can see Him in a normal, simple shape. What I can say, not a meaningful shape stone, not a shapeless stone. Not a meaningful shape stone. You can see in that also the Lord in that as well, as much as you can see in a murti. If someone, for example, has excavated something and that's a murti there, and if someone gives an explanation, this is Swayambhu, now you go and pray this because it is Swayambhu, one should not get confused. One should not get really lost in thinking. You should not keep your intelligence at the altar of anything for that matter. It is very, very simple. Even if someone has given a form, if it is not Swayambhu, that person himself is a part of the totality only. No. For example, if we talk about a reaction, okay, the potent in terms of these reactions, we have not given. You add acid and base, they neutralize. They become neutral. You have whatever, salt and water. We didn't create this. This is available. This just happened. It is nature, prakriti. This is how it is. So if that is the case, one need not have kartrutva in that at all. So similarly, if you happen to get a stone which is not of any form of any of our murti, for example, it is as much a same blessed thing, as much it can be the shape of a Nataraja in case you happen to take out a murti of Nataraja. But if someone were to come and say that this is Swayambhu, normally you will attach it to that Nataraja because this is the Swayambhu Nataraja, automatically आ गया पूजा करना है. One should not get carried away by this, not get confused by this. This Nataraja with a form and this stone without a form, they have the same status. So one should not get confused at all actually. And definitely when a Nataraja shape is given, there is definitely a human intellect behind that, which has been taught to make a Nataraja. That is what has gone to make the Nataraja ideally. But if you have to take the creation as Lord's creation, the entire galaxy is that only. No, why do you want it only in the form of a Nataraja? It is given for Upasana. It is definitely given for many other reasons, no doubt about it. But one should not get confused. So when you cut a piece, other piece automatically happens. When ignorance has to come about, knowledge, which is antidote to ignorance, is already available. This is how Shastra happens. Shastra happens. It's not created. So one has to really understand that why do we have Shraddha? Why should we have Shraddha? It is something really, very psychological, something intangible. How someone has Shraddha? Somehow they have Shraddha. But if you want to rationalize this, it's very simple. If ignorance has to come about from totality, once ignorance comes out, what is left is knowledge. Simple. I would not call it, to some extent I don't call it knowledge. I call knowledge as the outcome of the totality, basically. Totality is basically knowledge. I call the second part as antidote to ignorance. You have ignorance. From totality, when it has to come out as, then ignorance comes out. The second part is antidote to ignorance. Simple. And something like that only you see even in science, when they talk about you have matter, you have antimatter. Very clear. In the presence of matter, in the happening of matter, the second half is already antimatter. That's all. That's all. It all just depends on how you see it. That's all. So in a square, if you happen to take out one, what you can say, smaller piece of square, the other piece will look like L-shaped, stuff. Obviously, it has to be only that. There is no difference. And the best point is there is no difference between. There is no spatial difference also between any of these things. Totality just remains totality. I am dwelling deeper into this only because of this, that Shankaracharya is quoting Vedas here and saying that please understand, Veda says that everything that is here is Brahman alone. And it is Brahman alone. That is why one has to understand the second thing does not exist. So you can always ask this question, no, that we have a doubt in what Veda says only. Now you are saying Veda is saying, so understand it that way. So it becomes like a circular reference. Yeah, Shiva, if you could just keep your mic on mute. So when like the first thing is, we have got into Vedanta Shastra to understand this. And if someone says that, take this word to be true because Veda is saying, then you will ask a question. Boss, somewhere in 10th line you said that Vastu Siddhihi Vicharena. Now I'm asking a question as to how this is valid and you are not giving me the answer. So we have to give this answer, right? So very simple. When ignorance can happen, antidote to ignorance automatically is available. When you have pH 7 and if that can go to pH 4, automatically something has to be pH 9 or whatever it is. And when they come together, again they neutralize, they become pH 7. That's all. I'm just giving an example to make it little easy. The same thing is happening. When I can be an ignorant being, jiva, forgetting my totality, there is an antidote to ignorance. When I come in contact with that, automatically I get neutral. My ignorance gets neutralized. I understand my originality. I don't become original, because becoming original means there was a change in between. There was no change at all in between. It's only in understanding there was an issue, that's it. That's where Maya and everything comes into picture. So once antidote to ignorance operates, ignorance is no longer there. When ignorance is no longer there, that's where the question is, was it there earlier? And is it there later? Was it there earlier? Yes. Is it there later? No. Once ignorance is gone, you have already obtained that totality status. In the totality status, all these doubts are not there, because you already know the trick. That individuality is not there. You are the total being. So Shastra operates this way. That is very important thing. That's the reason I thought I have to dwell a little bit more on this, because while Shankaracharya is saying that as a set of verses which is emphasizing on this Aikya Bhava, Jiva and Ishvara, they are only one. This is what is happening now. So when we are talking about it, one has to explain in as many ways. And one of the statement which he is using, maybe even the subsequent statement also talks about it, is that this is said in Vedanta, this is said in Shruti Vakya, which is a Mahavakya. It is coming from the Lord himself. And one has to take it, and if you think the other way, automatically you are going against what is said in Vedas. This can confuse people a little bit. Am I supposed to take everything that is said in Vedas, even if I don't understand? No. But is there any other way to do it? There is no other way to do it, ideally actually. This is the only way to do it. But how? You have to do vichara. You have to understand them. So, Shraddha, why Shraddha? That's how we are getting into this body of knowledge. Shraddha is that Guru Vedanta Vakyadishu Vishwasaha Shraddha. There is something in this, that's why we are pursuing this knowledge. Definitely we are going to get the deal. That's very clear. In the first attempt, if the understanding is not happening, it is likely to happen probably after the 10th attempt, but it is going to happen. That is what is Shraddha. Because there is only one statement, there is only one thing which can give this totality, it is this only. But how part I am saying actually, how this is real knowledge, how one has to understand this is a Swayambhu. It is a Swayambhu because from totality, if a part has to come, the other totality will be the mirror to show to this part that boss, you are that total. As simple as this. As simple as this. This is how we have to understand the pramanatva of Veda actually. So, from this angle only, Shankaracharya is saying, please understand, in one place it is very clearly said, Brahmaiva idam, sakalam jagatcha. Entire thing is Brahman only, that one vastu only. Do not get confused. It is said in Shastras. That's also one of the reasons why you should understand second thing doesn't exist. Aikya Bhava is what is going to prevail. So he is giving the quote from Veda itself as a reason, as a part of reasoning, he is giving that. There, people can get confused. That I really wanted to validate that statement only, and now you are giving me that as the basis for me to accept. No. This confusion can happen, right? So that's the reason I am trying to explain that no one has to accept Vedas. One has to only have Shraddha. Because of whatever reason we have got that Shraddha, one has to keep that mind alive and alert. Because ignorance is a conceptual thing located in the mind. The antidote to ignorance is only knowledge. No appeasement, can really drive away ignorance. Only knowledge can deal with it. Nothing else can deal with it. And this knowledge is automatically available, as I said, the second piece of cake, the rest piece of cake, from the other part of ignorance. When ignorance comes about, automatically antidote to ignorance is just available there as much as ignorance is available there. This is how it is said, it is Svayambhuhu. This is how it has its own validity. One has to understand it this way. That's all. So clear, Please keep in this mind, this pH 7 and lesser and more. So that was the reason, I wanted to really stress upon this particular point, that this word of Swayambhu and this word of Shruti happening automatically, it's all this way, very, very simple. It is the other side of the coin. That's it. This is how it has to be understood. Fine. I open the session for queries because this concept has to be really understood before we proceed further. Anyone who has any doubt can always raise. Any simple doubt, any doubt until now, any of the verses, I'm fine with it. Okay. I don't see any doubt in the mind of anyone. Good that, at least it's getting assimilated well. But any other point of time also, if you have, you can always raise in subsequent sessions. And happy, Janmashtami to everyone. And we will chant the concluding verse. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om everyone. Good day.
Hari Om, Bhaskar ji. Hari Om.
Good day to all.
Hari Om.